he had to write it together because it was like Michelangelo asking you to paint a ceiling together. You know, you couldn't say no to Terry. Hello, welcome to the channel. And today we're going to do a review on Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Now this is obviously a very popular and well-known book. It's a bestseller, multi-million copy seller. So it's very well known, but I wanted to just do a review on it because I've read it for the first time very recently. So this book is, it's about the apocalypse, the end of the world, as predicted by Agnes back in 1655, along with many other predictions. She predicted the end of the world, which is going to take place on Saturday, next Saturday, just after tea time, in fact. And we have the angels of heaven and hell massing for this great battle. We have the Antichrist loose in England. The Antichrist loose in England. We have witches, we're witch finders. And we have an angel and a fallen angel. The angel Aziraphale and the fallen angel Crowley. And initially, what I would say about this book, it's interesting how this book started. So Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett met back in mid-80s after Terry had written the first Discworld novel, or first two Discworld novels. And Neil Gaiman was interviewing him for a magazine article. So that's how they got to meet, and they made a good friendship after that. But actually, this book, the initial idea for this book came from Neil Gaiman, and he initially was inspired by things like Good Omens and Just William stories. And he wrote a story called William the Antichrist, or 5,000 words of a story called William the Antichrist. And it was basically his idea that using classic English humour in a horror setting, because he felt at the time that Douglas Adams had that classic English human sci-fi wrapped up, Terry Pratchett had it in fantasy, but no one was doing it in the horror genre, that classic English funny, but in horror. And this was his sort of start at it. And he sent it out to a few people, including Terry Pratchett. And then Neil Gaiman's Sandman took off, and he was focused on that. And a year or so later, Terry rang him and said, you know that book you sent me, or those words you sent me, do you know how it ends? And Neil responded, well, no, not really. And Terry went, well, I think I do. Would you sell it to me? Or if not, shall we write it together? And Neil, not being an idiot, because Terry was growing in massive popularity at that point and becoming a very successful writer, said, let's write it together. He wasn't going to sell it, so let's write it together. And so this was born, and Neil described it. He had to write it together because it was like Michelangelo asking you to paint a ceiling together. You couldn't say no to Terry to write such a book. And this was the era. So this came out in 1990. Terry Pratchett was well into his Discworld novels then. So Guards came out in 89. At this point, Terry was probably putting out roughly 2 Discworld books a year. On top of Good Omens that came out in 1990. It was really in its flow with Discworld, increasing popularity. So Neil, and obviously Neil had done the Sandman. So that's how this book started. And it's a fun book. Now there are some bits in it. I haven't read enough of Neil Gaiman to really comment on where this falls within his body of work. But actually Terry Pratchett's body of work, which I've read a lot more of, this is not his greatest work. And I'd say there's some Discworld novels, even from that time, which for me are better books and better stories. But this is still a good read. It's a fun read. It's got that classic English humour. And there's one question I've got for my non-English watchers, or those who haven't lived in England. I wonder how much the humour translates, and especially there's quite a bit of humour around places in England. So you've got a bit about the M25, you've got a bit about Manchester. You've also got the angel Aziraphale owns a bookshop in Soho, which has certain connotations to it as well, if you know. Do those jokes land with a non-English based audience? I don't know, I'm assuming they do because it sold so many copies worldwide. But if it doesn't, you just glide over them, it doesn't affect the story. Is also another possibility. But that was more of an aside. It was just a question I had in my head as I was reading it, because it seems very English-focused humour, and English as in English places, not just, the British sensibility of humour. The parts on this I loved are the Aziraphale the angel and Crowley the demon, and the way their relationship works and the banter between the two. And they've had a relationship over thousands of years, and they don't want the rapture to happen. They're really trying to stop the apocalypse from occurring, because they're quite quite like it on Earth and living within the human society of it. So they sort of form this alliance to try and stop it. And their tete-a-tete, their dialogue, it's witty, it's humorous, it has points on what's good, what's evil, God, time, etc. etc. There's loads of points, which is, for me, typical Terry Pratchett. And when you read his Discord novels, this kind of stuff he delves into, and you get that wild class as that stereotypical humour, but dealing with serious points. So when those two are on the page, for me, it's a brilliant book. The bits I struggle with are the bits with the Antichrist, who's for most of his book, an 11-year-old boy. He's got his gang, and he's got his Hound of Hell, and I don't know, it just broke it up, and I could see what they were trying to do, and it kind of worked, but it broke up the story, and it didn't flow as well, it wasn't as humorous, and it just, to me, felt a bit more of a slog through those bits to get to the angel and the demon bits. So that's how I felt about that. So it wasn't a perfect novel in that sense, but it's funny, it's amusing, it's engaging, it's got critical points in there. Is it a horror? No, I wouldn't say it's particularly horror. No, there's the odd, there's like one scene that stands out, which was pretty horrible. But other than that, no, it's not. I wouldn't class it as a horror. The other characters I really enjoyed is the four bikers of the apocalypse, and how they span them. And I think that was really good. And you saw Terry Pratchett's anthropomorphic personification of death from the Discworld kind of translated into death as one of the bikers within this as well. So there was a bit of cross pollination, for a better word, between the two series at that point, which makes sense, because this is the point, he was well into his Discworld novels. But it's an entertaining read. It's good fun. It's got good English humour. I said, whether it all lands with a non-English based audience, let me know, because I'm really interested on that point, and I haven't had an answer to it yet. It's a quick read, it's entertaining, it's fast paced, other than the bits with the children, which just felt just a bit staggered and a bit slow. Everything else was very good, and there's plenty of humour, there's plenty of good points, as you'd expect, or I'd expect with a Terry Pratchett book. As I said, I haven't read enough of Neil Gaiman to really comment on his comparison to his body of work, but it's really good. And the TV show, I just wanted to just touch on the TV show, because the second season comes out very, very shortly on Amazon Prime, but I just wanted to commend the casting of the Angel and Demon, using Michael Sheen and David Tennant as the Angel and Demon. Chef's kiss, just perfect, absolutely perfect, and they just sell it so well. So if you've read the book, I encourage you to watch the series, because it is entertaining. If you've watched the series and you want to read the book, pick it up, because it is an entertaining read. And if you've read any of Discworld, I think you'll find good humour in there. If you've read any of Pratchett, to be fair, you'll find his sort of humour within that. Is it up there with the best Discworld novels? No, not for me. But it's still really entertaining. It's still enjoyable. It's still engaging. And it tells a fun story with serious points within it as well. So that's Good Omens, as I say, by Terry Pratchett Neil Gaiman. I need to read some more Gaiman, because I've not read enough of not read enough of his work. So I will definitely be picking up some more of his work in the very near future. That's all I've got for today. Thank you for watching this book review. I hope you found it informative. If you have read Good Omens, and what do you think about the English-based humour if you're not based in England, let me know in the comments below. And if you're enjoying these book reviews, please do like, subscribe, comment down below, etc., etc., and share. You can even share these videos. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you for watching this